Hey Wargamers, Doug here. Before this video starts, I wanted to throw a little shout out to a project that I'm working on. You see, I am going full time into content creation, almost doubling what I know I can put out in a given week. But to do that, I need a new camera and some setup and some hardware, and so I started a GoFundMe. In the description down below, you can find a link to it. There's also a video next to that where you can find more details, and I kind of go into a lot more explanation of how it all works. And of course, on the GoFundMe page, there's detail as well. So please consider donating. Me and the patrons are all very excited about this next step for the channel, and it just means more content for you guys. So anyway, think about it, and I'll catch you later. Welcome back, Wargamers, as we dive into the seedy underbelly of the cities of Sigmar and take to the seas just outside Anvil Guard to deal with some menacing orcs. Because today's story comes right out of the city's book and is titled The Battle of Blista Bakk. The sea lanes of Anvil Guard are plagued by orc pirates operating out of the floating shanty port of Blista Bakk. Seeking to wipe out this threat to their income, the shadowy cabal of criminals known as the Black-Scale Coil pressures Anvil Guard's Grand Conclave into launching a full naval invasion of the Greenskin port. Scourge wolf ships surrounded Blista Bakk, raining fiery missiles down upon its rusty ramparts. Meanwhile, Free Guild steam galleons with reinforced prow rams smash their way into its harbor, unloading the city's marine armies. Black Ark corsairs clear the docks, their matchless swordplay set against the raw strength of brutes and ardboys. The waters boil with blood as the siege escalates, and finally, the Scourge privateers unleash their greatest weapon. Several many-headed Charybdises drive into a mindless rage by the goading of their beastmasters. These monsters trample the last pockets of resistance, and a fire-ravaged Blista Bakk soon sinks beneath the waves of the searing sea. Friends, there are so many things I love about this story. I'm not going to waste any time. We're going to dig into this scene here. So Anvil Guard is one of the coolest cities in the Cities of Sigmar book. And in fact, if I was going to do an army of them, this would be it. You see, Anvil Guard refers to a place and the heroes within it. And so we're going to talk about the location here in a sec. So the city of Anvil Guard is a heavily fortified port located in Akshi, the Realm of Fire. The land surrounding it is thick jungle, but the location is important for two really big reasons. It overlooks an important passageway on the water, which is always a strategic thing when you're talking about old school navigation of ships. And also, it's next to a long stretch of ocean that's filled with natural resources. It could be food, minerals, all that kind of stuff. As a city, its population is a real mix, with the dominant faction being elves. More specifically, a lot of the units that used to be dark elves in the old world. The city was originally founded by the Anvils of the Heldenhammer Stormhost, and they do have this stern sense of tradition and order, but beneath the surface of the city, things are very different. A criminal organization has slowly risen in power, known as the Black-Scale Coil, ruled by a council of fleet masters and sorceresses and Darkling Coven beastmasters, all of which are, sort of the typical dark elf units from Warhammer fantasy battles. And I can really see this happening between all the nautical stuff that goes on with a port city. So you got fishing and transportation and smuggling and warships, all the way to the boots on the ground, because all of these factors, they have armies that they basically loan out to the government or act as mercenaries, so they have a whole bunch of income coming in. That's just a prime seeding ground for corruption. Now, these non-Stormcast Eternal businesses and power bases can really assert control over the local government, but everything has to be done in the shadows. The Stormcast can never know. And so this is the seedy underbelly of the Cities of Sigmar, a place of piracy and smuggling, crime, and secrets. In short, you will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy, and for our story today, these are the good guys. So that's the location, but let's talk about the forces inside of it, because a nation's military and its citizens are not always the same thing, of course. The forces of Anvil Guard are pretty much what you'd expect from the explanation above regarding who runs the city. Scourge privateers led by cruel and ruthless fleet masters. You have ranks of Darkling covens marching in lockstep. You also have sorceresses flying around overhead on dragons. Everything is meant to be hyper-aggressive, fiercely territorial, and shady as all get out. Now, what's interesting is that we only kind of have a named character, right? If you go to the Anvil Guard section of the city's battle tome, there actually is a short story, and it's mostly dialogue between like a fleet master and a first mate type thing. But if you were looking for names to have a named character, boom, there you go. The story matches everything we've read in the above blurb. So if you, like I said, just looking for names, go check it out. And I love the way that this story inspiration, right, this narrative lead, so to speak, really positions just why the fighting is happening. That the Black Scale Coil is having trouble with some Orc pirates, and so using their commercial might, pressure the Council of Anvil Guard to declare war, or at least launching some form of attack fleet. And I find it interesting that the story goes out of its way to clarify that this is a criminal organization that steered the course of the city because they didn't have to, right? It could have just said Anvil Guard saw that there was a port of Orcs nearby and they went to go fight the Orcs. But by emphasizing, the Coil's manipulation, we almost get the sense that Anvil Guard wouldn't have gone out and fought the Orc pirates, or at least at that point they would not have done that. And so when I read this, my immediate thought is, the Orcs were probably attacking or raiding some secret shady operations of the Black Scale Coil, who then needed to twist the arms of a government who otherwise wouldn't have bothered. And that is really cool, because it highlights how much control and influence a criminal element has, but maintains that cover of civility by going through, quote-unquote, the proper channels of government. And so if Sigmar asks the Stormcast Eternals there, what's up, they can say, hey, we had an Orc problem and we went and dealt with it, right? Because the way that it's kind of written out is just, this ruse is working. We've gotten the official seal of approval to go attack somebody. So as far as the Orcs in our story, I'm so upset that we don't have more information on them, because I want to know everything about pirate Orcs. First off, they exist on a floating scrap heap, which is pretty much what you'd get if I built a boat. And this thing must be massive to carry an Orc horde, right? And the pontoon city is mobile and just floats, so they just kind of cruise around looking for a good fight. And there's just something so wholesome about that. They're just cruising along, having a good time. Now, we know absolutely nothing about the bosses in charge, or what kind of craft they would use to sail when they raided, when the Orcs were attacking other people. All we really know is that they have some Ironjawz units. They're called Pirate Orcs, but some of the represented units here are from a specific faction. And so the battle itself is awesome. You've got naval raids, boarding actions, a D-Day style landing of the Cities of Sigmar ship just ramming it into the fortress island. The sea is boiling with blood. There could be a thick fog in the air, as they are near Anvil Guard, which is a notoriously foggy and dark place. And there's so much here to dig into as we transition to bringing this fight to the table. But I just wanted to touch on the fact that this story has everything, right? You got drama, you got crime, you got war, naval battles, attackers, defenders, Orcs, elves, cities. I love it. And so let's start bringing this to life. So we'll start with the Orcs, as they are pretty light on details. I do recommend using the Orruk War Clans as your battle tome over Grand Alliance Destruction. And while the only units that were specifically mentioned were Ironjawz, so we're talking about the brutes and that kind of thing, don't see that as a limitation. This could just as easily be a big Waaagh, which is the combined force of Bone Splitters and Ironjawz in the Battle Tome, and it has some Brutes and Ardboys in it. So personally, I'd pick Ironjawz or Big Waaagh. It's up to you. We know nothing about their leadership at all, so you do have a ton of freedom here. I think about what kind of units you'd likely find on a ship, or, for example, would a ship be able to hold or support 3 Maw Crushes? All of that is up to you. For some reason in my mind, I think of like an infantry-heavy army, but I can't really pin down why I think that. So it's completely up to you. I'm going to just flat out say there's not really a wrong way to go about building an orc army to be the defender. Now, moving on to the cities of Sigmar, play as Anvil Guard. That's a great start. Their armies would reflect their population, mostly, but not all, elves, right? You have Scourge Privateers, the Charybdises are mentioned, of course, Darkling Covens, and so on. However, I don't want you to forget two things. In every city, there are Free Guild, cannons, which means humans in Duarden. Also, they coerced the city's council to basically declare war, which means Stormcast Eternals make perfect sense. And so if this was some rogue thing, then no, but it is an official action that was approved by, the council of the city. So having Stormcast Eternals go out there to fight and clean this up because the city decided it was an important thing makes total and complete sense. So don't feel like you can't use Stormcast because everything needs to be shady and dark elfy. But let's talk about battle plans, because armies are different than armies in action. So what kind of action are we going to see on this table? Well, honestly, a lot. First, there's a naval battle, which, if you have the terrain for it, I just Googled some images online. I don't know anything about who posted them, but, folks do naval narrative events for Age of Sigmar, and I think it's just really cool. For the rest of us who don't have those big old boats, the real action is likely going to be the moment that a Cities of Sigmar ship rams into the dock and unloads their troop. And there's a few things that are interesting. This is functionally a city fight, and so immediately when I think city fight, my mind goes to the Battle of Elixia campaign series, where it does have a attacker defender and all different kinds of force compositions, all kinds of stuff really that lend itself to fighting in a city. There's a whole thing called Streets of Death where it's just rules for enacting really, really flavorful narrative things to fight in a city. This also puts the Orcs as the defenders, which honestly in a lot of stories does not happen a whole lot. They're almost always the attacker, and so I like to see them in sort of a different role, so to speak. And really this is one where you can either go, like I said, with a singular battle, where it's that kind of D-Day-esque, we're smashing the ship in, we're unloading directly into the enemy type thing. Or you can do a mini campaign, which would be fighting over different sections of Blista Bakk. And I think that would be really, really cool as well. A lot of missions that could focus on maybe the attacker, meaning the cities or Stormcast army, going and destroying or raising a specific place or point on the ship to help it sink. And that would be a really great one. I'll be honest with you, I do not have a specific battle planned in mind for this. Because of the nature of the story, it is both almost too large for a singular battle plan, but also it's strange that I don't really think of a campaign series for it. Like, you can absolutely link your games together to see if the Blista Bakk sinks, but ultimately I can't think of like a campaign system for like tracking and like, leveling up characters over time, that kind of stuff where, campaigns kind of come out into their narrative fruition. This could just literally be a series of games. They could be matched play, they could be narrative, where one person is trying to destroy the objectives of the other, and that those objectives could be the buoys that keep Blista Bakk afloat. And so I apologize for ending on sort of a flat note there. There's a lot of great things about this story, though, that really just make me so excited to try and recreate it. But man, I've been looking at battle plans all week, and I just can't find one that I'm like, this is it, And even with the open war generator, which honestly is probably your best bet if you want to create a very, very custom thing, picking a deployment where it looks like one force, leans in heavily to one side, meaning this is where the ship enters, and unloads its troops, and then the defender having kind of the rest of the board to prime and get ready. Those are the kind of missions that I would be looking for specifically. And don't be afraid to give minor bonuses to either side to represent different parts of the battle. Of course, nothing would be a bigger surprise than a ship ramming into your dock, and so that's a moment where maybe the Cities of Sigmar player has a bonus. But then when you get into the nitty-gritty of fighting orcs in such a tiny, confined space, well, maybe that might be time to give the War Clans player a little bit of a boost. So keep those things in mind. There's no wrong answers, but this was just a really cool story that I wanted to share because, one, Anvil Guard is my favorite city, just straight up, like not even a question. And then in addition to that, Orc Pirates, are you kidding me? Absolutely. Shut up and take my money, GW. I would love it. So anyway, thank you all, friends, so much. If you know of a battle plan that you think really represents this, go ahead and leave it in the comments down below. I'd really like to take a look at it because I couldn't find anything. Thank you all so much for watching and listening, and I look forward to catching you in my next Age of Sigmar lore video. Thank you so much, and happy wargaming. Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed that video. It was made possible by the folks over here to the left. These are my top supporters over here on YouTube and on Patreon that keep this channel going. If you'd like to learn more about how to become a supporter and get some cool things in the process, like exclusive pictures and interactions with me and get your questions answered here on the channel, go ahead and click any of the links down below or the join button on the community page over on YouTube. Regardless of your choice, I wanted to thank you so much for joining me with this video, and I look forward to seeing you in my next one. Happy wargaming.